In most countries of the world, but especially in Europe, Christmas is one of the most important holidays. It usually means time spent with family or friends, food, and music. British people are a bit different. On the second day of Christmas, December 26, they have what is called Boxing Day, a day full of sports competitions, but especially football. In England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland is a tradition to play football from top tier football leagues to the lower ones. Lately, several coaches or players evolving in these countries have complained that the competitions are not interrupted to spend quality time with friends and family. But do you know where the name Boxing Day comes from and why is soccer played in this day? Here's all about it. At the first glance, it might be tempting to blame the TV broadcasters, but Boxing Day is part of the UK history. Long ago, in the 12th century, there was evidence that a kind of medieval football was being played. This football was mostly practiced during Christmas or Easter. Where exactly the name Boxing Day comes from is still unknown today. It is supposed to come from an older British tradition on which postmen, errand boys, and servants of various kinds expect to receive a Christmas box from their employer. Another theory came from the churches. Churches received donations from people and kept them in a box. On December 26, church people distributed donations to very poor people. Even if the exact source is not known, the idea is about the same. Because the football we know today is a relatively new sport, the first Boxing Day match was played in 1860 between the world's oldest club, Sheffield FC, and second oldest club, Hallam FC, which was also their first ever inter-club match. Originally, matches on Boxing Day were played against local rivals to avoid teams and their fans having to travel a long distance to an away game on the day after Christmas Day. But why Christmas and not any other day? In the 19th century, much like today, Christmas meant a day off for the working class. Otherwise, there were not many days off for them. The football clubs noticed that the workers had time to go and watch a football match, and then they crowded as many matches as possible during Christmas. The tactic worked very well, especially because at that time workers did not have PlayStation, Xbox, Netflix, or YouTube. For them, that was the right time to leave the house and do anything. To go to an event, a show, a theater, anything. Therefore, at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, matches were organized during Christmas. Some teams managed to host 3 matches in 3 days in a row. For example, in 1913, Liverpool beat Manchester City 4-2 at home on Christmas Day, lost the return game 1-0 on Boxing Day, before drawing 3-3 at home with Blackburn Rovers the next day. As I said earlier, at the beginning only matches between local teams were played, but after a few years longer trips started to be scheduled. Of course, the players started complaining about this and some players refused to play on Christmas Day on religious grounds. As time went on, the word began to develop to allow more days off and to have more money. In the mid-1900s, people began to spend more and more time with family on Christmas Day, and interest in outdoor events declined. The last Christmas Day games in England was in 1965 when Blackburn beat Blackpool 1-0 at home in the World First Division and Coventry beat Wrexham 5-3 in the Third Division. The last Christmas Day games in Scotland was in 1966. Clydebank and St Mirren drew 2-2 in a top-of-the-table First Division clash, and the Loa beat Cowdenbeath 2-1 at home in the Second Division. Christmas Day football is still played in the Northern Ireland, where the Steel and Sons Cup final is traditionally held on December 25. Boxing Day is a national holiday in the United Kingdom, but is also celebrated in many Commonwealth countries like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and so on. Nowadays, it is normal to watch matches on TV, but this is something extremely recent. BBC Radio were the first to comment on a Boxing Day game. It happened in 1930 and only the second half between Arsenal and Manchester City was broadcasted. The first Christmas match to be broadcasted in full was Brentford vs Sheffield United on December 26, 1946. Brentford won 2-1 and live matches soon became a regular feature of Christmas radio listings. It was not until 1988, on December 27, that the first Christmas match was televised by ITV. The match was Norwich vs West Ham and the commentator was Martin Tyler, who is still commentating the Christmas football. But let's get to today's football. Some foreign players or coaches have complained that they have to play at Christmas, and others have simply accepted that it is an English tradition. Louis van Gaal said, "There is no winter break and I think that is the most evil thing of this culture. It is not good for English football." In addition to tradition, a lot of money is involved today. Because in many countries football is stopped, some of the people who love sports shifts to Premier League. Thus, clubs receive more money from broadcasters. Besides, it also means massive advertising for the strong Premier League brand. Before this bad period of 2020, the stadiums were packed, but how will it be this year? The traditional Boxing Day football is scheduled to still go ahead, with the hope of some spectators being allowed into the grounds as well as the chance to watch on TV. At the time of filming this, the UK government has put in place a system through which some clubs can host up to 4,000 fans. The system is divided into 3 tiers, depending on how serious the situation is in that area. The teams that fall to Tier 1 are allowed to play with 4,000 spectators, the teams that fall to Tier 2 are allowed to play with 2,000 spectators, and the teams that fall to Tier 3 are not allowed at all with supporters in stands. So, the only clubs from Premier League that can host supporters under the updated guidelines are Brighton, Everton, Liverpool and Southampton, who are all in Tier 2 regions. Even if you can't see your favorite team from the stadium, you can still watch it on TV, which improves the situation a little. Now that you know all this, I can tell you my personal opinion. I think that this tradition of playing in Boxing Day is very good for everyone. Clubs and their players receive salary bonuses and spectators can spend time with their friends at the stadium. Okay, not during this period, but in general, it seems like an honest exchange. The advice of the episode would be to eat only the red parts of the watermelon. It won't necessarily help now, but it's good to know.